Hi everyone, I'm Tracy and welcome to today's video. So today's video, I'm going to be, first of all, I'll be doing this look with some of my newer brushes and trying out some new makeup, some new and some old. And I have some updates to share with you guys. For the most part, very positive outlook for the Japanese brush makers. So a little over a year ago, I put out a video about the future of the brush industry in Japan and how they're running out of hairs. It's causing shortages, discontinuations, and price increases. And I feel like since I made that video, this past year has been, price increase after price increase. So many brushes are discontinued, and it was a very grim outlook. But I have some new information that I think might give us hope. At least it gives me hope that some things will turn around for the better. Hopefully this will give you guys a better understanding of the changes in the industry and what we can look forward to in the future. This is all speculative. This is the opinion of a specialist whose job is to identify these things and to look into like the geopolitical landscape and how it affects us, and kind of my take on how that will affect the brush industry. So I hope you guys enjoy this, and I'll see you guys on the other end. Yeah, I'm gonna just kind of talk about some things that have been on my mind related to the brush industry, and it's for the most part good news to me. So for the most part, it's been kind of a negative story as far as the future of the Japanese brush makers. But there's some positive news on the horizon, and I'll go over that as I do my makeup. So I'm going to really try to multitask. Okay, so I'm going to do my foundation, and I've been using the Ilia True Skin Serum Foundation. This is their medium coverage, and I really like it. I don't necessarily like it on my own, but mixing it with the NARS Longwear, Naturally Longwear, makes a really, gives a really nice finish. So that's how I've been using it, as like a, mixing it in. I had been looking for a clean foundation for some time, and I had a hard time finding one. But this one, I feel, at least the shade really worked well. So for some of the clean brands, and I'll tell you what shade I have, it's the shade 4C2 Tavara. And I'm really glad I went to Sephora to pick this up, because I was gonna buy a much deeper shade, but someone at Sephora, a very lovely associate, helped me. I'm using the Koyudo Yoshiki face brush. She helped me find this shade, and I've been really liking it. And it is a fairly luminous finish. And my skin is pretty dry right now, so I've been having to work a little extra hard to prevent my skin from looking like really dry. I'm going to just kind of smooth out that. I'm going to use the Yuki Takashima number 5 from the Pro line. I don't think you can get this anymore, but I like it to kind of get the foundation into smaller areas like this. So I recently was listening to a Joe Rogan podcast, and I came across a very fascinating speaker, or guest, I guess you can say. And I'm a big fan of his podcast. I really like the guests that he brings on. He gets the best of the best because of his channel. And let me turn that off. I feel like that's making things a little bit easier. And I'm going to go in with the Dior Backstage concealer. I'm going to just put it on my palette right here. And then use one of these concealer brushes. I'll use the RS-6 by Chikuhodo. So the guest's name, I forgot his name, I'll tell you right now. I'll link the podcast down below. His name is Peter Zeihan, Z-E-I-H-A-N. He was on the episode 1921, and he's a geopolitical analyst. So he looks into, I mean, he really knows a lot about the economy, the global political arena, I guess you can say, and he knows a lot about China. And he gave some very, very grim predictions. Grim for the country of China, but in a lot of ways positive for a lot of the world. So he is confident that the People's Republic of China will fall within 10 years, and he says most likely sooner. So we're talking maybe 5, 6, 7 years. The political system in China will crumble. And a lot of that is the fact that they are a dictatorship. So Prime Minister Xi, according to him, and he has inside knowledge, he is at a point where his advisors are not even advising him because he has a history of killing people who don't go along with him. There's also a lot of suspicious disappearances and murders of billionaires. So they're not, as far as the leadership in China, they're not in a good position. And he's making decisions based on very little information. He also predicts, and I believe this to be true, that the southern provinces, or like cities like Hong Kong, Shanghai, are going to break off and become independent states, which is good, I think. Good for people living in those areas or have family or friends in that area. I don't think they are happy about being under communist rule. So I feel like they will get their way, which is good. Just in case you guys are not unfamiliar, Hong Kong was given over to the British for 99 years, and that expired in 1999, something around that. And so China claimed Hong Kong as their own, to the dismay of most of the citizens of Hong Kong. So hopefully they will be liberated soon. And so he thinks their economy is going to fall apart. So this idea that they're going to take over the world is an illusion. Supposedly they have lied about their population. So their population growth is very low as a result of the one-child policy. All right, I'm going to try out this new to me by Terry Hydra powder, and I saw this mini one on Selfridges, and so I wanted to take advantage of this. Just didn't realize this would be so small. Okay. So these are supposed to be like hydrating powders, which for me right now is a good thing because it's been so dry. Well, my skin's been so dry. I'm going to use the new 20-year hair Chikuhodo brush. And I've been using this for highlighter and for setting. Oh, no. I just haven't used it with this powder. It's kind of getting messy here. Look how fine. I don't know if can you see it? It's such a finely milled powder. Can you guys see that powder being like blown around? That's crazy. Okay. So I really like the other one, the tinted hydro powder, but this is a translucent one, so I'm a big fan of the By Terry setting powders. If you have mature skin or dry skin, I think these are would be really good. The thing with these By Terry powders, they don't like heavily set. I mean, that's the whole point of them. So yeah, look, it still feels a little sticky. I'm gonna just go in with the natural color. And I like to really set my eyelids well so that when my shadow goes on, it doesn't skip. All right, and then we'll come back to that powder later. And then today I saw Chris's post on Instagram. I'll put her handle right down below. She was showing a Suku palette, and it reminded me of the one that I have that I like, and I haven't used this for a long time. I think you can still get this. It's the Designing Color Eyes number 14, and it has this like iridescent color, this brown, green, and purple. The reason I don't use this is, I mean, I don't use it very often, is that the Suku shades, they tend to be very subtle. So they're not a quick palette to use. You have to build the color up. And I'll show you how I do that. I'm just using that light shade to kind of put a slight sheen over my eyelids. I really like this light color because it's like a subtle iridescence, which is probably not even coming out, but I'm going to go in with this brown color. And for me, in order for that color to show, well, you know what? I'm going to use this brush, the Bisotto GB1. And I'm really enjoying that. I'm going to join this. I'm going to go in with this light brown shade, the matte shade, and just start to create definition right here. So this has kind of replaced my Wayne Goss 3. I think it's even softer than the Wayne Goss 3. And it's so good at very lightly depositing pigment on the eye. I'm going to go in with the Chikuhodo GS2 for the lower lash line with that same shade. So, okay, what I was going over with the podcast that I was listening to, how that relates to the brush industry is that if the country falls, a lot of their rules and regulations hopefully will be changed or just go away. So not too long ago, China banned the export to Japan of hairs. So there's a huge shortage, and we see that in the pricing and the availability of a lot of brushes. But with these predicted changes, that might be reversed. I'm hoping. And I think if his predictions are true, if they come true, we will see a reversal of the rules and regulations that China has been doing with their trade. So right now, I think his name is Xi Jinping. He's just making rules on his own. And a lot of these rules are not good. And the country is in such a bad state socially, especially amongst the young people, that there is this strong movement amongst the young people, people in their 20s and 30s, and I don't know the actual Chinese name for it, but it translates to let it rot. So they've just kind of given up on their life for a few reasons. First of all, they were forced to be only children. They weren't allowed to their parents weren't allowed to have more children after they had one. Also, a lot of girls were either probably, abandoned, adopted, sometimes even killed, so that they can have a son. And so China's younger population that was born during the one-child policy, they are now men are at such a disadvantage for finding a wife or a mate, because there is 1.2 males per one female. So it is causing a big dip in population growth. There are just not enough women to sustain the population. So the future young generation is going to be much smaller than they need. So they need a certain amount of young people coming up to, work these industries, to take over from the older generation. So when you have an entire generation of young people who have given up on things, it is causing serious problems. All right, so for the shimmer, because the Suku shimmers are so subtle, and I like a stronger shimmer, I'm going to dip into this Pat McGrath, this really beautiful, like silverish champagne shimmer, and put that in the inner part. So have any of you heard about this movement in China, the let it rot? Yeah, it's supposedly a very, very big thing. And that is a bad sign for any country. And the young people have given up. I think to a certain degree in the US, that's kind of happening too. It's just been so much harder for a young person to come up in this world. I'm going to use the Chikuhodo B533. This isn't new to me, but I haven't used it for a long time, and I don't know why, because it's a really, really great liner brush. If you want more of like an intense line and you want it to be very even, this is made out of horsehair. It's kind of like a larger pencil brush. Can't really blend with it, but it's really nice for the lower lash line. And then I'm going to use that same matte shade with the Mizuho MB130. It's the round liner brush. I like this for the upper lash line. But along with these predictions, and I highly recommend listening to it yourself if you're interested in this kind of news, because he explains it much better. But he goes into detail on how it's inevitable that a huge amount of the Chinese population will experience a famine. I think the number he predicted was like 500 million people are going to suffer from a famine due to the fact that Chinese food consumption is highly dependent on foreign fuel, foreign goods, and when the country falls, a lot of that infrastructure will also fall. So when it comes to food, you have to feed a population, because we don't grow and raise our own food, we depend on other industries, not just the producers of the food, but also the industry of transportation, the amount of labor required to harvest that, the tractors and plows required to sustain those plants and animals, the fuel required to bring that food to the store. That will fail in China and lead to massive, widespread famine, which China is no stranger to. One good thing, if you're in the US and in Canada, he said that we will not experience famine. We will always have food, at least through the next 10, 15 years. And that there's going to be a shift in perspective about how we get our food. So relying more on local farming, local, meat producers, instead of importing everything from overseas or from long distances, which I feel the government has kind of already instilled into our culture. There's this huge farm to table movement, which I feel like that movement is deliberate. It's to get us ready to be more self-reliant. Going forward, the US isn't going to be able to rely on China for a lot of their goods. And according to him, the Chinese government, Chinese officials, are very aware of this possibility. Now I'm going to use, I don't know if I used this recently. I've been really liking the Chikuhodo GF2, and I believe you can still get this. I'm just going to use this Dior powder bronzer in Warm Bronze number 5, and this shade is amazing as well. So, okay, now I'm going to go in with the Dior bronzer. Now this is going to take a while because this brush is such a light application, but we'll get there. I've also been liking the Chikuhodo G502. That one I would say is a little bit faster. But I just love how natural and gentle my bronzer looks when I'm using this brush. Okay, that's good for now. I'm just looking at myself and I have it looks like I don't have any lips. So I'm gonna use nothing exciting, the Charlotte Tilbury Supersize Liner. I'm gonna just do this off camera because, all right, now the product that I'm really excited about is this Gucci blush. Took me a long time to open it. It's the shade 5 Rosy Beige. Okay, I'm gonna use the Chikuhodo, it's called the B507, but I think it's the J507. It's this really nice cheek brush. Have not used it a whole lot, but it reminds me of this B507 with the mixed hair. But if you're not looking to spend as much on the mixed hair, I think this one is a great alternative. I'll show you guys, I hope that's translating, just how beautiful this blush looks in the pan. I hope that's picking up. This wasn't a clean brush, so let's see how this works. Oh, that's really beautiful. It's very matte. I thought it was going to have a little bit of a sheen, but We're going to put some highlighter on top of this. I mean, this packaging, super heavy, super luxurious. Anyhow, off camera, I did my mascara, filled in my lips, and what else did I do? I kind of forgot where I left off, but so I hope you guys liked the information that I shared about, you know, my perspective, not my perspective, someone else's perspective on the, I guess, part of the global economy. It might not be your thing, but I do feel like with this prediction, if anything, it will bring a positive change to the brush industry. So this is my take on it. So when China makes this broad regulation saying do not import goods or export goods to Japan, to me, it's kind of an act of aggression. You know, it's not allowing, it's like a sanction in a way, like an opposite of a sanction. So when the US decides not to give a country our resources, it's not a good sign for that country. And these type of things happen, and these type of things are going to happen a lot more going forward. And I'll link that video or that podcast that I listened to. It's a long one. It's a lot of information, not all positive, but I think very important to understand what's going on in the world and also understand how those things on a micro level affect us. And I know, like, predicting the fall of a country, especially a huge country like China, is a big statement. It's not coming from me. It's coming from someone that knows way more than me. That's really what I wanted to talk about today, and I got all disrupted because I lost my power. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this content. If you guys have an opinion on what you think the future of the brush industry as far as the Japanese brush makers go, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear, you know, what you guys think and if this information gives you more hope for the future. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.